value whatsoever in life.
I reminded the two men about another woman they tried to warn as they hovered just above her in their chopper. An Army photographer had taken her picture.
We saw her in the tall grass, and I motioned for her to stay.
And so she crouched down, but
I was hoping she wouldn't be detected, and when we came back, she was in this condition.
Oh, my. What happened, Larry? Why did it happen? Why did these guys lose it?
I think they had some inept, incompetent leaders on the ground that day.
One of those leaders was Lieutenant William Calley. He was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison after Thompson and Colburn testified against him. And it still rankles them that Calley spent just 3 days in the stockade before President Nixon had him placed under house arrest. He was paroled 3 years later. But around the country, many Americans treated him like a hero. Today, living in Georgia, Calley has gained some weight, lost some hair, and will not give any interviews. In My Lai, we talked about another of Charlie Company's leaders, Captain Ernest Medina. I told Thompson and Colburn about an interview I did with Medina after the massacre.
Did you yourself, Captain, actually see the shooting of old men or women or children?
No, I did not.
You saw none?
I saw no shooting of any innocent civilians whatsoever.
He was there. Medina was there, and Medina was the one that you saw do what?
We saw a wounded girl, and we called the guy and said, hey, get somebody here.
Somebody there needs help.
Yeah. He walked up there, nudged her with his foot, stepped back, and blew her away.
This is Medina,
yeah.
And you saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Thompson testified against Medina at his court-martial, but Medina was acquitted of all charges. And in that interview back in 1969, Medina seemed to offer a justification for the killing of women and children.
We had lost a lot of good people that had served their country in Vietnam, in a minefield, due to sniper fire, due to mines and booby traps. The entire area was heavily infested with mines and booby traps. When infantrymen approach an area, the women and children will place these things out.
And that, in effect, was his justification for Charlie Company doing what they did.
Well, I suppose he believes that if you don't want those mines and booby traps planted, it's okay to kill every child and woman. I just don't feel that way. We have a different opinion on that, obviously.
There's a big difference between killing in war and murder. Cold-blooded murder.
What do you call it when you march 100 or 200 people down in a ditch and line up on the side with machine guns and start firing into it? It reminds me of another story that happened in World War II, like the Nazis.
There's no doubt about the fact that it was a war crime.
No doubt in my mind.
Before heading for home, Thompson and Colburn helped plant trees at a new My Lai Peace Park, a project sponsored by a Quaker group from Wisconsin. And they went to a ceremony honoring the victims of that war crime 30 years ago. The American ambassador to Vietnam, Pete Peterson, did not attend the ceremony. He told me he thinks it's time now to move on from the past, to look to the future. But Thompson thinks it would be a mistake to move on too quickly.
I'm not a scholar. I don't know. Has the United States ever apologized? Are we too big to apologize? It happened. The United States knows it happened. It's embarrassing. You can't go forward till you get it out of reverse.
evening. I'm Al Pierce, the director of the Ethics Center, and I'm going to play the role of moderator or master of ceremonies tonight. These gentlemen need no introduction. Their bios are in the programs. You've seen the videotape. They want to know what's on your mind. They want to get to your questions and answers as soon as possible. I think each of them is going to make just a couple of minutes of remarks, and then I'll be ready to call on questions. There's one microphone up there, and there's one over there. I'd ask you to use those. And Larry, do you want to, or Hugh, do you want to start off? Right.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Colonel Rimp. God, this is going to be a good night. Admiral Rimp for having me here. And I should say Admiral Select Ludwig, who's your commandant. Thank you. Dr. Al Pierce from the Ethics School here. I want to thank y'all for what you're doing. The path you've chosen, being a naval officer or a military officer, is a very honorable profession. I want to thank you for doing this. Our country needs you, and our country depends on you. And matter of fact, the whole world is depending on you. I want you to make us proud. You just saw a short video. We had officers there that did not make us proud. They did something military people do not do. You are trained military people. Your job's going to be to take out the threat. When there is no threat, your job's over with. You've accomplished it. Do it, please, in a very honorable way and make us proud of you. You don't realize how much responsibility is being placed on you as officers and leaders. God, it's enormous. And one mess up multiplies hundreds of thousands of times. So you control a lot. You have a whole lot of responsibility. You're getting the best training in the world to fulfill these responsibilities and obligations. Again, thank you for your service. We know y'all are restricted on time. That's why I'm not talking much. I want to hear what you have to say in a second. Please.
Larry, did you have anything you wanted to add at this point?
Just briefly, Superintendent Commandant Dr. Pierce, thank you. What's happened here is a role reversal. We don't use the H word. It does actually apply to Mr. Thompson to be referred to as a hero, but now you have become our heroes. So we want to ask you what you're thinking, and let's just switch roles and get into Q&A. And thank you for the invitation and your hospitality.
Please.
Test.
You passed the test.
All right, thank you. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your presence.
Thank you.
What this proverb said, humility goes before honor and pride goes before a fall. How can you, as people from the older generations, hold your leaders and the leaders that we're looking up to in high esteem when they can't apologize for something? I mean, you figure America as the most beautiful country in the world. We've got a kaleidoscope of people, groups, colors, creeds. You know, skin tones doesn't matter with language. And yet someone can't just step forward like an ambassador and say, we're sorry, it happened, and say we have compassion on these people. I look at that and I'm in tears. I mean, war is war, but children are beautiful. And to see, I mean, it must rip your heart apart to have an ambassador, supposedly elected by a president, step forward and say, well, we need to move forward. And you just said it right, you know. Before you go forward, you got to get out of reverse. And I'd just like you to maybe give us some advice how to handle situations like that we face.
Thank you. I think that's a very well thought out question there. I think that we need the best leaders that we can possibly have. And I think that not every time the best person is put in a position. We have to get on to our leaders to make sure, I guess, the best people are put in the right position. Mr. Wallace on that segment, believe me, could have gone a lot further in that direction, but that wasn't what the story was about. So he did make a little brief mention, but it goes a lot deeper than that. And we need to make better choices of who we put in control of things.
Wonderful question, but you are assuming that we do respect these people. I tend to agree with you. You hit it right on the head. These little children that are no threat to you are not combatants and should not be treated as such. So I'm agreeing with you 100%.
Yes, sir.
Evening, gentlemen. We're obviously very honored to have you here with us. I'm just wondering if we're a special group that you don't give this presentation to a lot of people around the country, and how often you share the things you have to share with the rest of the country.
Could you repeat that just a little bit louder, please?
Turn this mic,
Thank you.
please.
Okay.
There's a long-time helicopter pilot here on the stage, and you'll have to speak a little bit louder for him.
Gentlemen, I'm just wondering how often you share this story with other people in the country. If we're a very special group that you don't do this much for other people around the country.
For 30-something years, no, it was not told at all. Things got turned around in 1998, and I probably average about a trip a month now, somewhere talking. If I can say something that'll make someone in the audience pick up on, and later on, tomorrow, next year, 20 years down the road, have a decision to make and make the right decision, it'll be well worth it. It's pretty often right now.
We do try to be selective because we have been approached by people who, if you're in the limelight, there's people out there who will use you, but let it be known in this auditorium that the Naval Academy is right at the top of the list, so you are special for us.
If I may, before I turn to the next question, Hugh, I'd like to pick up on, you said for 30 years not much happened. Could you share, both of you, a little bit about what the reaction was for much of that 30 years to you during what you had done that day in your profession, the Army?
I certainly wasn't being invited to places like the Naval Academy or West Point to talk about ethics because I was not considered a good guy in the public eye. When the story broke, it was covered up. Blame was not placed in my personal feelings in the right direction. They were more interested in a junior officer threatening the life of a senior officer than they were 504 people that got murdered. You would have to do a whole lot of research to try to understand why that would happen. But we had a war going on in Vietnam, and we had a bigger war going on in the United States. I hold no personal grudges, against anybody, but I was just not a good guy. When all the trials were over with, I was very happy they were over with and gone because as fast as it ballooned, it died away, and I was not happy with some of the court-martials. Wasn't happy with any of them, but I had to go on with my life, and I didn't go around volunteering that I had anything or any knowledge of My Lai 4.
I've spent a lot of time researching this, and I want you to know that is the mildest possible version I've ever heard of the way they were treated by their fellow soldiers after that. Yes, sir.
Evening, gentlemen. I was wondering, one of the soldiers in the film said he was reacting to orders. How did the soldiers on the ground react to Mr. Thompson when he got on the ground being a senior enlisted man?
Actually, he was a junior.